Good morning, everyone. My name is Katrina Salazar. I am here as your president of the California Board of Accountancy, and I would like to welcome everyone here in Sacramento, as well as participating online to the July 28th, 2023 CBA meeting. The Board of Accountancy has provided an opportunity for the public to participate via the WebEx platform today. And when we take public comments, we will begin by taking public comment from those individuals that are present at the Sacramento location. I will then ask the moderator to open up the WebEx lines for public comment. As we do have a board member, Mr. Jacobson, participating at a noticed alternate location, at this point I would like to ask Mr. Jacobson if any members of the public are in attendance at that location.
No, there are not.
Thank you very much. If that does change, please let us know and we will incorporate public comment at your location as well.
I will do that.
Thank you very much. And then also for those participating online, I do want to remind, and in person, I'd like to remind everyone that public comment will be allotted for up to 5 minutes for each individual. So with that, I would like to turn the meeting over to Ms. Reed to take roll call so that we may establish a quorum.
Nancy Corrigan.
Nancy Corrigan, present.
Michael Savoy.
Michael Savoy, present.
Joe Rosenbaum.
Here.
Yan Tu.
Here.
Katrina Salazar. Evangeline Ward.
Here.
Tony Lynn.
Present.
And Dan Jacobson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much for that. And before we proceed with our agenda, I do want to remind all of our participants that when you speak, please be sure to pull the microphone close to you so that those on WebEx can hear and that our recording will have good clarity. So with that, I would remind folks that we were able to cover a lot of materials yesterday. So today we will be starting with agenda item 10, which is the report on the Enforcement Advisory Committee. And at this point, I would like to invite our chair to the front, Mr. Doug Aguilera, to share a committee update with our board. So welcome and take your time. When you are ready, please proceed.
Thank you. I have 2 agenda items to report on today, both related to our recent meeting and to a future meeting date change. And so with your permission, I'll go through both of them before I ask for comments.
Thank you. That sounds good.
Good morning. My name is Doug Aguilera, and I am the Enforcement Advisory Committee Chair. I will be presenting CBA Item 10A1, report on the July 13th, 2023 Enforcement Advisory Committee meeting. The EAC again held its meeting in person on July 13th, 2023, here at the CBA office in Sacramento. I would like to thank CBA member Tony Lynn, thank you, for attending the EAC meeting and providing an update on CBA activities. I would also like to thank Mr. Lynn for taking time to attend one of the investigative hearings the committee conducted. At the meeting, members reviewed 14 case files. The case files included open and closed investigative files, and members provided valuable insight and feedback to assist staff with the next steps in the investigative process. The EAC also held 5 investigative hearings. Our next EAC meeting will be held on October 5th, 2023. The next item on the agenda, 10A2, relates to a already approved date in 2024 that needs to be changed. So the EAC members approved the amendment to the October 3rd, 2024 meeting date at our July 13th, 2023 EAC meeting. And now the EAC recommends that the CBA adopt or modify the proposed new date of October 10th, 2024 for the EAC to meet. That concludes my presentation, and I will now turn it back over to President Salazar, and I'm happy to answer any questions members may have.
So we do have a point of clarification. So thank you very much for that presentation and motion. What we just learned is that thank you for presenting the one date change. As procedure, we will actually need to approve the entire calendar. So that recommendation, I just want to confirm, would be for the entire slate of dates as presented, which include the change. Is that correct?
Yes.
Fantastic, wonderful. So with that, we do need to make sure that our motion is inclusive of all of the dates on the calendar. But I want to open up for our board member questions for Mr. Aguilera, if we have any. Okay. Seeing none, I would say thank you so much. May I call for a motion to approve the calendar? Ms. Tu?
I will make a motion to approve the calendar.
Thank you. We have a first from Ms. Tu, and I'd like to invite a second. Mr. Lin? All right, so Mr. Lin has indicated he would like to second that motion that is on the floor. I believe at this point, I'm losing track of how to do. You'd think I wouldn't have just done this yesterday. But now we have covered questions from members, and I do need to open it up for public comment. So is there any public comment in Sacramento? Seeing none about the motion on the floor, and any public comment for either agenda items 1 or 2 under this report. Seeing none, I'd like to ask our WebEx moderator to please open up for public comment.
This is the moderator, and we are open for public comment on the EAC report, including the motion concerning the 2024 dates and the full calendar. If you would like to make a comment, you may look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right of your WebEx screen. Click the question mark, type the word comment into that text box, and click send. Anyone may also raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon. And our call-in users may raise their hand by pushing *3. Are there any requests for comment on this report? I do not see any requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Yes, moderator, please close the Q&A. Mr. Savoy?
Yeah, I'm a little confused on agenda item 10A2. It has background, and I think those should all be 2023 dates. And then it says comments, proposed EAC 2024 dates. I'm a little confused about the duplication of 2024 dates and what exactly are we voting on here?
We're changing the October 3rd, 2024or date to October 10th, 2024. Part of the purpose of this item.
But that's not my question.
No, the
If
first,
you look at the agenda item,
the first group are the CBA meetings in 2024, and the second group is
got it.
the EAC.
Thank you. Never.
All right. Well, thank you very much. That is important to clarify, so I appreciate that question. With that, I believe there are no additional comments or questions, so I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Reed to please call for the vote.
Nancy Corrigan?
Yes.
Dan Jacobson?
Yes.
Tony Lynn?
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Katrina Salazar?
Yes.
Michael Savoy?
Yes.
Yen Tu?
Yes.
And Evangeline Ward?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much. I thank you, Mr. Aguilera.
Thank you.
All right. Moving along to our next report, we have item B, which is the Qualifications Committee. So I would like to welcome Mr. Williams, the chair of that committee, to come forward. And when you are ready, please proceed.
Thank you, and good morning. President Salazar, members of the board, I am Michael Williams, chair of the CBA's Qualifications Committee. I'm happy to provide a report on the Qualifications Committee July 26th meeting here that was held at CBA headquarters. First, I would like to thank CBA member Corrigan for attending our meeting and providing an overview of the CBA's activities from the March and May CBA meetings. At our meeting, the QC discussed and approved the July 2022 meeting minutes. Next, I presented on the findings and recommendations of the consideration of the CPA Experience Requirements Task Force, known as CERT. The 2024 QC meeting dates were reviewed and approved. The proposed dates will be presented for CBA approval at a later meeting. Chief Michelle Center led a discussion regarding the students understanding the requirements for CPA licensure, SURE CPA. QC members appreciated the opportunity to provide input regarding the clarity of the educational requirements. Generally, the members found the educational requirements are clear, but did provide some specific examples of areas that may be improved upon. Staff indicated they would incorporate the information gathered from the members into the future SURE CPA reports. Finally, we held a closed session to conduct the annual initial licensing file review. This is a practice the QC is resuming after a hiatus during COVID. Since July 2022, the QC has held subcommittee meetings on 3 separate dates to conduct interviews with employers and applicants to review working papers of a test experience. These subcommittee meetings took the form of Section 69 reviews and personal appearances. As background, the QC conducts Section 69 reviews when staff believe additional or clarifying information is needed from a California licensee who has signed a certificate of experience. For example, when an applicant has a short period of work experience that resulted in an affirmatively completed certificate of experience. The QC also conducts personal appearances. This is done when applicants obtain their accounting experience outside the United States and its territories. Additionally, staff may select applicants who are supervised by CPAs licensed outside of California for a personal appearance. Since July 2022, the QC conducted a total of 13 Section 69 reviews and 5 personal appearances. 10 applicants were recommended for approval of a CPA license and 8 applicants were recommended for deferral. The next QC meeting will be held on October 25th, 2023. I would like to turn the discussion on this item back over to President Salazar, and I'd be happy to answer any questions members may have.
Thank you very much for that. Members, I'd be happy to entertain any questions. Okay, seeing none, I believe we do need to open for public comment on this, so? Yes, so is there any public comment on this item in Sacramento? Seeing none, I'd like to invite our WebEx moderator to please open up the portal for our public comment.
And this is the moderator. We've opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, anyone may click on the question mark icon, typically in the lower right of your WebEx screen, or behind the 3-dot other options if you're on a mobile device. Type the word comment into that text box and click send. Your other option is anyone may raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon to request a comment, and our call-in users can press *3 on their mobile device to request a comment. Are there any requests for comment at this time? And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please close the WebEx.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for your report, Mr. Williams. And that concludes our reports from the committees. Moving along in the order of our agenda, the next item to complete is agenda item number 14, which is the approval of the minutes. So with that, we are going to request 2 motions. We have quite a few minutes, so we will do a little bundling. But the first motion I am asking for is a motion to adopt the minutes of the May 18th, 2023 California Board of Accountancy meeting, specifically agenda item 14A, which includes non-substantive edits that were noted after the materials were received. Ms. Tu?
So moved.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chu, for that. Ms. Corrigan?
I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Corrigan, for the second. We do have a fully formed motion. Any board discussion or questions, edits? Okay. Seeing none, I would like to invite a public comment here in Sacramento. And seeing no public comment, I would like to invite the WebEx moderator to please open up the WebEx portal for public comments on agenda item 14A.
And we've opened up the WebEx Q&A feature. If you have any comments on 14A, you can look for the question mark icon, type comment and click send, or raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Are there any comments on the motion? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, moderator, please close public comment. Thank you very much. And with that, I believe we can call for the vote. So, Ms. Reed, would you please assist?
Evangeline Ward?
Yes.
Yen Tu?
Yes.
Michael Savoy?
Yes.
Katrina Salazar?
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Tony Lynn?
Yes.
Dan Jacobson?
Yes.
And Nancy Corrigan?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much for that. So moving along, we are going to propose bundling the following agenda items. And so I would like a motion to accept the minutes for agenda items 14B through 14F, which also includes non-substantive edits that were noted after the materials were received. Ms. Tu?
So moved.
Thank you very much. We have a first from Ms. Tu. I'd like to invite a second. Ms. Ward?
Second.
Thank you for that second. We have a fully formed motion. Any comments or additional edits from the board members? And seeing none, I would like to invite public comment here in Sacramento regarding this agenda item. And seeing no public comment here, I'd like to invite our WebEx moderator to please open for public comment for the agenda item to approve 14B through F.
Thank you. This is the moderator, and we've opened up public comment for agenda items 14B through F, acceptance of the meeting minutes. If anyone has a comment, you can either raise your hand by pressing on the hand icon, or asking through the Q&A feature, you can click on the question mark icon, type the word comment, and click send. And call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Any comments on the motion? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close public comment feature?
Yes, moderator, please close public comment.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Reed, would you please call for the vote?
Joe Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Katrina Salazar?
Yes.
Michael Savoy?
Yes.
Yen Tu?
Yes.
Evangeline Ward?
Yes.
Tony Lynn?
Yes.
Dan Jacobson?
Yes.
And Nancy Corrigan?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Moving along to our next order of business, that is item number 15. And the first item up under item A is the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. So I will go ahead and lead off with the report from the Board of Examiners, which is the first item. Excuse me. I would like to share that I did participate in a virtual Board of Examiners meeting back on June 20th. It was in a virtual format. Much of the agenda covered, as you would expect, continued conversations about CPA evolution readiness from the exam perspective. Also, there was a lot of discussion regarding the impact of artificial intelligence upon the profession. And I think the highest level summary to share is that the AICPA exams team, in collaborations with the Board of Examiners, are exploring how AI will impact test preparation, test development, test content, and other areas. And I would think it's important to share that the security and the validity of the CPA exam is of utmost importance. And throughout their analysis, they do not believe that currently this poses a risk to this exam, this area in the foreseeable future. So there was a lot of robust conversation, and that really had to do with things that have been in the news recently, and I think it is important to know that it is an area that is actively being addressed. In addition, the Board of Examiners continues to recruit additional volunteers for the 6 different exam panels or topics that are going to be part of CPA Evolution, and they are recruiting volunteers to meet in December and January to help with scoring each exam session. So that is a summary of the Board of Examiners, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Okay. And what I will do is at the end of item 15, I will open for one public comment on any of the items that have been discussed. That will help us move through it a little bit more. And then the next item up, seeing no questions, would be the report of the State Board Committee by Ms. Corrigan. What I will ask is that Ms. Corrigan simply continue with the NASBA report and move through it at the end of her presentation. So.
Thank you, President Salazar. Regarding State Board Committee under the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, we simply had a virtual meeting on June 13th, and that was really an orientation process for 2 new members, of which I am one, and we will begin actual formal meetings sometime in September, so we're trying to schedule that right now, so I'm really looking forward to it. And so I will now continue, and my next report really is covering 15B2, 3B, and 4, because they're all very interrelated. It's a little hard to segregate them. So on June 14th, the regional directors had a virtual meeting planning for the Western Regional Meeting, which we know was held at the end of June in Kansas City. And leading into that Western Regional Meeting, which was in Kansas City, held on June 27th through the 29th. And I'm not sure whether all of you know, but the regional directors are actually in charge of and moderate those meetings. So it's a good experience for us. So I was, of course, involved in the Western, and the folks held the Eastern one in Savannah, Georgia in early June. During that time, something very important and a good learning experience for new board members is our not quite masterpiece theater. It's a skit on how not to hold a board meeting. And I want to say that Mr. Lynn gave an award-worthy performance. I know he forgives me for volunteering him, but he did a great job. So it's very, very worthwhile. We had breakout sessions the first day of that conference, and of course, the 120 hours versus 150 is continuing to be discussed at length, underscoring the importance of uniformity and consistency amongst the jurisdictions, nationwide, but having a need for alternate pathways, some jurisdictions having to revise regulations to do so. Nervously that a few are actually wanting to change and seriously looking into the 120 and how that might disrupt mobility, substantial equivalency, and lots of other things, which is why it's really not a good idea to make a decision in a vacuum. And the key is we need more CPAs without sacrificing quality and without lowering the bar. Everybody seems to understand that part of it. How to limit barriers to entry to the profession being discussed, and that will continue to be discussed. Something interesting that came up to me, one member from another jurisdiction discussed that we also need alternate career pathways, meaning letting those new candidates know that become a CPA, but you can go into private industry, you can go into government. There are many options that you can, really many decisions you can make once you become a CPA. We discussed the ELE, experience, learn, and earn process. Our firm is really going to accommodate staff and let them get that educational piece in. However, if they don't, they disrupt the whole process. So they have to be willing to subsidize and make that available. If that is a concern, it's being discussed. It's a pilot program now, and once it's kicked off, it's thought that government and industry will be very interested in doing so as well. So that's, pardon me, a very interesting concept. We discussed UAA model rule changes and how the 15-hour conditional credit. NASBA has moved it to 30, remembering that each jurisdiction has to make their own decision whether to accept that and what to do, or more, you know. So pipeline effort is always being discussed. Many groups are joining to develop creative ways to improve the pipeline. So that will be a discussion for quite some time. More jurisdictions are adopting the 120 hours to sit for the exam. We know that CBA has already moved forward in that regard, so you can get those folks in faster and on their way to licensure. Board consolidation issues. Many boards are under one oversight entity and really do not have much in the way of autonomy. So transition to that can be very complex. So we are under an agency, but we have quite a bit of autonomy. Many just do not. Scheduling for CPE evolution. How are we notifying candidates, opening test centers, issues with block scheduling? Is that inhibiting anything? So those are possible issues. Other topics, the ELE is to be launched in the fall of 2023, and NASBA is recommending option 4. When they looked at 4 options and considering that option 4 was cost-effective, academically rigorous, so maintaining the rigor, and it was doable, it was possible. So they analyzed that, and there's also an ELE advisory group of 12, and Mr. Franzella is one of those 12. So we're happy to have him on board, and California well represented. So that was nice to see. Status of the new CPA exam, related IT conversion is on target for, I guess, September 1st to connect all jurisdictions. Later in the meeting, the COO reported that California is well on its way with the testing, maybe has even completed it by now, but that was good to hear. So California is doing great. Okay. The Relations with Member Boards Committee met in person July 20th in Napa. And we discussed the results of the Eastern and Western regional meetings. And at that time, I've mentioned to you before, we invite in the executive committee, so NASBA leadership, so that we can ask some questions directly and expect answers. So that's important. And significant discussion about ELE. What are their what are the plans? Are there discussions between NASBA and AICPA leadership? Exactly what is going on? So we wanted to hear from them. Colleen Conrad, the COO, reported that block testing is being provided to firms and universities. So one of the questions was, well, is that going to prevent or get in the way of anybody else wanting to schedule and sit for the exam? The point being, yes, blocks can be reserved, but if they don't commit to doing that, they are opened up to other candidates, and there is real-time monitoring of that. So there does not seem to be a concern, and so hopefully that will be the case, yes. AICPA facilitated access for peer review reports. I know that we have discussed that here with this board. Many boards have smaller staff or no staff basically, or they have a variation of access to that information, and it was thought that it would be really good if NASBA worked at AICPA and provided some training and assistance, et cetera, to those boards to kind of help them with it, as that information obviously is very important. We did planning for the next set of regional calls. Those will take place in mid to late August and early September. And in the final stretch of this report, the NASBA Board of Directors met the next day, July 21st in Napa. Obviously, we got operational and financial discussions, but some highlights are that a quick poll is planned to gather statistics regarding various boards' organization. Are they independent? Are they quasi-independent, or are they consolidated? So that information will be gathered, and an email will be going to all EDs, and the findings will be kept confidential. The boards will be assigned either an alpha or numeric code, so just to gather that information. And I mentioned IT on target and how well California is doing in its conversion. There noted was an uptick in college and university enrollment across the board, but it's nice to know that in accounting this is happening, very important. ELE, NASBA is close to a memorandum of understanding with the university. There is much interest with small and large firms. Some colleges and universities and state societies are even doing their own version of ELE. NASBA is still considering 18 to 19,000 candidates who, as a result of COVID, perhaps had portions of the exam passed, but for whatever reason, COVID, did not come back and finish. So the question is there a way to allow them admittance while not losing the sections that they have gained? So that's being looked into. Obviously, each jurisdiction would have to take a look at that and decide whether that makes sense to do. So NASBA is working really hard with some of those few states that are looking at going back to the 120 hours. They really want to dissuade them and have them really avoid looking at it in a vacuum, consider the nationwide, could be worldwide effect. And the last thing I want to say is our next meeting of the board is the annual meeting for NASBA. That's the 116th annual meeting. That's in New York City on October 26th and 27th. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do we have any board questions for Nancy? She covered a whole bunch of stuff there, and as she mentioned, there's a lot of overlap, so that was a very thorough presentation, and I appreciate you wrapping in the board report at NASBA as well. Okay, seeing no questions. The next agenda item within this section is the Diversity Committee, which I am the chair. So I would share with this group that since our last meeting, there has been additional meetings of the committee. They are being held virtually. I think the items to highlight just briefly here, something that is the things that are relevant for our board is that NASBA is launching a DE&I training opportunity, and that is a 90-minute virtual opportunity, and it has been introduced at regional meetings, and the plan is to offer it on a monthly basis beginning in August of this year. And these monthly training classes are going to be pre-calendared for the fourth Tuesday of each month. The idea is that having a regular interval makes it easier for the various boards around the U.S. to decide if and when it fits into their needs and into their calendars. I will say that there is continued work on how can this be offered to boards that have meeting restrictions for open meeting acts, and another option is to have the presentation, actually the chair of the program from NASBA fly to a board and make an in-person presentation. Other ideas have been maybe staggering small groups that might meet the requirements, so it might take several months for an entire board to participate, as they may take just a few at a meeting. But again, this is exciting and something new that is being made available. I would also share that NASBA has launched a DE&I webpage, which has resources and information relevant to Board of Accountancies and practitioners. So that new resource is out there. The Diversity Committee is also working with Board of Accountancy candidate preparation. And so that is being done through support of NASBA's efforts to work with state societies to develop a training program. And the idea behind this is that it will help organizations identify and prepare their members to be candidates for various boards around the U.S. And at this point, it's in a discussion stage with CPA Society execs on developing this program. So that is starting. The other thing I would mention is that NASBA staff is working on a Board of Accountancy demographic report. And this is something that's done biannually. And so this report is expected to be completed in the fall. The ask I would make to my board members here on the California Board of Accountancy is that you are all board members, you're all members of NASBA, and as such have the ability to create a NASBA login, and there is a profile option there. So you can go on and self-report information about demographics if you wish for that to be blindly included and shared with NASBA in terms of their demographics report opportunity. So again, the data is just aggregated to give an overview of who is leading boards of accountancy, and the idea is that the data can help support future outreach and the needs of the profession. So, Ms. Tu?
Thank you, Chair Salazar, President Salazar. You are in a unique position because you chair the Diversity Committee. I was wondering if there is any effort within NASPA for their staff and as an organization. I know you're providing training program, but I'm wondering if there is any program within the organization itself to work with staff to make sure that it's not a shallow DI training only, where it's more ingrained and part of a practice as an organization and not just lip service, for lack of a better word.
Well, I think that's an important question to ask. I can speak to the fact I actually should know the title of Alfonso Alexander formally, but I will say NASBA has a director whose job is to do that. And as part of the reports for the NASBA board, there is always a summary, and there are highlights of how NASBA is focused on this. And I will say, I believe NASBA is fortunate to be in an area with a diverse population, but one of the things they do is strive to match their staffing to make it sort of representational and make sure that they are being inclusive. And so they're very aware of who is in the community, how are they working with their staff. And so I don't have a lot of specifics to report, but I do know as a board member that I'm able to see that in practice with what they're doing. And Ms. Corrigan, I would love any assistance on this topic.
Of course. And when we are at meetings and we are seeing these presentations, we are seeing videos and we are seeing, pictures of their staff and what they do, how they get together, how they hold activities, because they're not all working in the office all the time. So bringing them together in that interaction, but we can see the wonderful mixture of people and conditions and situations. And so I would say it is within their organization. Thank you.
I would also add NASBA has, like the Board of Accountancy, diversity embedded within their strategic plan. And they take their strategic plan and map it down to activities and goals and outcomes. So it is integrated, not just at that it's on paper level, but how does it translate? So I think that's an exciting thing for me to observe and learn from. That's a great question. Are there any additional questions? All right. The next item is 4, which is a report of the Western Regional Meeting, which was held June 27th through 29th. And I would just say, I think, Nancy has really addressed that very robustly within her regional director report, because the regional directors are the ones that make that happen. So I would like to pause and simply on this part of that agenda item, I would like to thank Nancy for the hard work that she spent volunteering to make that event such a success. Our regional directors have an important role at the regional meetings, and I know it's a lot of work. So it was a very well done event. I'd also like to express some appreciation to Mr. Rosenbaum and Mr. Lin for participating, attending as new board members, and also say that staff was well represented. We were fortunate to have Mr. Franzella able to attend as acting EO, but we had staff who were able to participate and follow along through the online presentations. And that was Deanne Pierce, Michelle Center, Eulalio Ortega as well. And so there is so much embedded in the report Ms. Corrigan gave that I think I will just say it's so important to have many ears hear all of those messages and be able to incorporate that into the needs of the Board of Accountancy, and know, as we have reflected upon here, that what happens is not in a vacuum. So it is important to engage in the conversations at that level. And so with that, I think that is my only comment about it. I would like to invite Mr. Rosenbaum or Mr. Lynn. Did you want to share anything about that NASBA event? No? Okay. Fantastic. All right, any additional comments from our board members? All right, so at that point, I would like to open up for public comment on this agenda item, which is item 15, other business. And seeing none, I'd like to invite our WebEx moderator to open for public comments on the items included on agenda item 15, other business.
This is the moderator, and we've opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to solicit public comment. If you've got a comment on any of the reports under other business, you can look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment, and click send. Or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 5 minutes. Are there any comments on other business items? And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please close public comment.
Thank you.
All right, moving along in our agenda, item number 16 is the report. 16A is actually the report of the Legislative Committee. So I would like to invite our Secretary Treasurer, Joe Rosenbaum, also chair of this committee, to take over.
All right, thank you. And this report will cover all of 16A, not necessarily item by item. So the Legislative Committee met yesterday morning, July 26, 2023, and we received an update, discussion, and possible action on legislation on which the California Board of Accountancy has taken a position, and we also had an update on those actions that we are currently monitoring. In terms of the ones that we've taken in action, the first one was Senate Bill 372, and this addresses dead naming and how boards should display licensee name or gender changes on their website. At its May 2023 meeting, the CBA did not take a position on this bill, but did direct that a letter be sent to the author's office expressing the CBA's consumer protection concerns with the April 20 version of the bill. The bill was subsequently amended on June 28, and the amendments largely addressed the concerns CBA expressed in its letter. That bill is now provides that if a licensee was previously subject to an enforcement action referencing the individual's former name, the board is to post an online statement on its license lookup feature, directing the public to contact the board for more information. Senate Bill 372 is currently in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. The Legislative Committee took no further action on Senate Bill 372. Senate Bill 544 is the next bill that was discussed. This bill would amend the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act related to how a state body conducts meetings by teleconference. The bill passed out of the Assembly Governmental Organizational Committee, and there are pending amendments that will be amended into the bill in mid-August before the bill is heard in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. The amendments will add a repeal date of January 1, 2026, and requires a majority of the state body members to present in one location, a majority in one location. The CBA has a support position on SB 544. No further action is required. Senate Bill 816. Legislative Committee discussed Senate Bill 816, which is authored by Senator Roth and contains, among other provisions, the CBA's fee increase proposals, which the CBA approved in its May meeting. And you'll recall that that was discussed in my Secretary Treasurer's report yesterday. So the two-step fee increase proposal is now included in Senate Bill 816. The final bill, Senate Bill 887, contains the non-substantive changes as requested by the CBA. This bill has not been amended since the May meeting and is still pending in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. So for 544, 816, and 887, we have a support position and no further action is required. We also received a discussion, review, and possible consideration of positions on legislation in the California Board of Accountancy that the board is monitoring. Staff provided an update on legislation presently being monitored. If any bill is amended in a manner that impacts the CBA, an analysis will be conducted by the staff and presented to the CBA at a future meeting. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much for that. Are there any questions about the Legislative Committee report from our board members? Seeing none, I'd like to open for public comment here in Sacramento. And seeing no public comment, I would like to ask the WebEx moderator to please open the WebEx for public comment on agenda item, let me see, 16A. 16A. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are now open for public comment. If you have any comment on item 16A, the Legislative Committee, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment, and click send, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Are there any questions on the Legislative Committee updates? And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please close public comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to item 16B, our Committee on Professional Conduct. And so I would like to invite Chair Corrigan to present.
Thank you, President Salazar. The Committee on Professional Conduct met yesterday morning, July 27th, and staff provided the CBA with an update on the selection of peer review oversight attendees at the Peer Review Oversight Committee's annual administration site visit, or ASV, to California administering entity CalCPA. At its January 2023 meeting, the CBA reviewed and discussed the Peer Review Oversight Committee's inability to perform their annual ASV to CalCPA due to AICPA's assertion that their confidentiality policy prohibits staff from observing the ASV. Given the concern AICPA expressed regarding staff participation, staff consulted with legal counsel regarding any differences between staff and PROC committee members that might be pertinent. It was found that there are no differences between staff and PROC committee members related to authorization to access information, public disclosure, and the protection of the public. Staff of the CBA are representatives of the CBA and have the same rights to information used for oversight and the same restriction from public disclosure. Staff have proposed a temporary procedure for conducting the 2023 ASV that will also serve to provide useful information towards a long-term plan. For 2023, CalCPA will randomly select approximately 30 firms that fill certain characteristics related to their type of peer review, i.e. system versus engagement review, and peer review related rating to use during the 2023 ASV. Once this random sample has been selected, CalCPA will contact the related firms to obtain permission for CBA staff to access their peer review related data and documents as part of the 2023 ASV. During the ASV, attendees will also review each step of the ASV summary checklist and discuss what information or evidence is sufficient for the PROC to consider the step complete. CBA shared this proposal with CalCPA for presentation to and consideration by the AICPA. Jason Fox and Rich Simidian, both of CalCPA, spoke to the progress that CalCPA and CBA have made in finding a mutually agreeable resolution, but expressed concern with the proposed procedure being used on a more permanent basis. Staff will continue to work with CalCPA to conduct the 2023 ASV and will provide an update at CBA's September 2023 meeting. President Salazar emphasized that this is a procedure to ensure that statutory and regulatory requirements are met. and that firms should not view participation as any form of punishment. The CPC took no action on this item, and this concludes my report. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Chu. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Colligan, for that report. I was wondering, is there a discussion about what happened when a firm do not sign off on releasing their data? I did not recall yesterday if there's a...
Ms. Center will address that for us, please.
We've had some conversations with Cal CPA, and we do not anticipate that occurring. So far, the conversations that they've had, we don't anticipate a firm to deny us access. Given this is a one-time situation, not our permanent solution, and frankly, partly because of the concern that you just expressed, we would not want to deal with that potentially. We don't anticipate it happening. If it does, I think we would consider whether or not we want to honor that request or not.
Just as a human behavior, I would get very suspicious immediately. That's all.
Yes, it's very important how we convey this information, and I think that President Salazar made some important contributions that we need to include in our messaging.
Additional comments or questions from our board members? All right. Seeing none, I would like to invite public comment on the report of the Committee on Professional Conduct here in Sacramento. All right. And seeing no public comment here in Sacramento, I'd like to invite our WebEx moderator to please open the WebEx portal for comment on agenda item 16B.
Thank you. This is the moderator, and we're open for public comments on the Committee on Professional Conduct report. You can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send, or you may click on the hand icon to raise your hand, and call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Are there any comments on these report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, moderator, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, that brings us in our agenda item 16C, which is the Enforcement Program Oversight Committee. So I would like to invite our Vice President, Ms. Chu, who is also Chair.
Thank you so much, President Salazar. So our committee took up 2 items yesterday morning, and item number 1 is 16C2, discussion and possible action to initiate a rulemaking to amend California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 98, disciplinary guidelines and model order. This item provides members with an opportunity to review and approve proposed amendment to California Code of Regulations, CCR, Title 16, Section 98, and revisions to the California Board of Accountancy disciplinary guideline and model order, which we're going to from now on call disciplinary guidelines. The proposed revision to this regulation and disciplinary guideline include the following: adding the CPA approved language for NASPA's CPT ethical leadership training as a condition of probation, adding language to the rehabilitation evidence section related to the petitions for reduction of penalty associated with reducing costs or an administrative penalty. Third one is other non-substantive changes. So I'm going to read the proposed motion. EPOC accepted the staff recommendation to approve the proposed regulatory language in Attachment A, approve the revisions to the discriminatory guidelines in Attachment 2 direct staff to submit the proposed changes to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs for review, and if no adverse comments are reviewed, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, making a non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for hearing as one is requested. And if no request for hearing is made and no adverse comments are received during the 45 days comment period, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed language for CCR Title 16, Section 98, as noted. So, this is a fully formed motion and does not require a second. I will turn back to President Salazar for discussion and vote.
Great, thank you very much, Ms. Chu. I do want to clarify that it is the approval for the proposed regulatory language in attachment 1, and that is the motion being put forward. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Wonderful. So we do have, just want to clarify for the record, so that is clearly understood and consistent with the numbering in our materials. So with that, we do have a fully formed motion, and I would like to engage our board members and ask if there are any questions or comments about this motion. Okay. I do not see any at this point. I would like to invite public comment in Sacramento. And this is, and seeing none, I would like to invite our WebEx moderator to open up agenda item 16C2 for public comment.
Thank you. This is the moderator, and we've opened the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment on agenda item 16C2, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment, and click send. You may press the hand icon to raise your hand, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 5 minutes. Are there any comments? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that Q&A feature?
Yes, moderator, please close.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we are prepared to move to the vote. Ms. Reed, can you assist?
Nancy Corrigan?
Yes.
Dan Jacobson?
You're
Yes.
muted.
Yes.
Tony Lynn?
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Katrina Salazar?
Yes.
Michael Savoy?
Yes.
Yen Tu?
Yes.
And Evangeline Ward?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tu.
Thank you. Moving on to item 16C3, discussion and possible action to initiate a rulemaking to add California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 99.3, reinstatement of surrender licensees via written record. This item provides members the opportunity to review and approve proposed regulatory text to add Section 99.3 to California Code of Regulation, CCR, Title 16, describing the procedure for reinstating surrendered licenses not resulting from an enforcement matter. As proposed in CCR Section 99.3, when the CBA receives a petition for reinstatement from a licensor who previously surrendered their license not as a result from a reinforcement matter, the CBA may consider the petition for reinstatement via written application. On page 2, there is certain criteria that a petitioner must meet in order for their petition to be considered via written record. This proposed regulation would conserve CPA resources, including costs associated with an administrative law judge and deputy attorney general, and would lessen the time involved for the CPA and the petitioner by eliminating in-person hearing and relying instead on a written argument. The EPOC accepted the staff recommendation to approve the proposed language for section 99.3 in the attachment, direct staff to submit the text to the Director of Department of Consumer Affairs for review, and if no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for hearing if no one is requested. And if no adverse comments are received during the 40-day comment period and no hearing is required, authorize the executive officer to take steps necessary and complete the rulemaking to adopt the proposed language for CCR Title 16, Section 99.3 as noticed. This is a fully formed motion and does not require a second. I will turn back to President Salazar for discussion and action.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tu. So it comes to us, we can move into board comment about this agenda item. Seeing no board comment or questions, I'd like to invite public comment here in the Sacramento location. And seeing no public comment here in Sacramento, I'd like to request our WebEx moderator, please open up the WebEx Q&A for public comment on agenda item 16C3.
Thank you. This is the moderator, and we've opened public comment for agenda item 16C3, rulemaking about reinstatement of surrender licenses via written record. If anyone has a comment, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Are there any comments? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please close the WebEx.
Thank you.
Q&A. All right, that concludes that item. Is that correct?
Very correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chu. I appreciate that. So that moves us on. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so excited about moving on that I forgot to actually record a vote. Well done, staff. I appreciate that. That was a test, actually. So now that we've concluded public comment, yeah, we should take a vote. So Ms. Reed, could you assist me with this very important step?
Evangeline Ward,
Yes.
Yin Tu,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Tony Lynn,
Yes.
Dan Jacobson,
Yes.
and Nancy Corrigan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you for that. All right, so now that concludes the agenda item and brings us to our final item of the day, which is our closing business. I would like to ask if there are any agenda items for future meetings from our Board of Accountancy members. So if so, just raise your hand to be called upon. All right. Seeing no requests for future agenda items from our board members, I will now open for public comment on future agenda items at the Sacramento location. And seeing no comments, I would like to ask our WebEx moderator, please open for public comment on agenda item 17.
Thank you. This is the moderator, and we are open for public comments on suggestions for future agenda items. If you have any suggestions for topics, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Any comments or suggestions for future agenda items? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, moderator, please close the Q&A. So with that, I would like to thank everyone for their hard work at these meetings, and for those that followed along remotely, I'd like to thank our remote participant, Mr. Jacobson, for hanging in there with us and engaging through this method. And so with that, I hope everyone has a wonderful Friday, and the meeting is adjourned.